We just interviewed Jen Perelman, who's running for District 23 in the House against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So we're going to play the campaign ad first, and then we'll get right to the interview.
If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that our system is broken. There are two sets of rules in our country, one for the top 1% and one for everyone else. Congressional representation was supposed to be a term of public service. Today, it's become an elite career full of professional politicians who have never held another job in their lives. Every year, they take millions of dollars from their corporate donors just to stay in office. It's time for our representatives to stop putting the interests of corporations and wealthy CEOs before their constituents. My name is Jen Perelman. As a lawyer, I know I could be working for mega corporations arguing million-dollar cases, but instead, I'm choosing to fight for us. I started out practicing criminal defense because everyone deserves a fair trial, not just the wealthy elites. As a pro bono attorney, I have defended the rights of young women against anti-choice laws. Corporations and billionaires can spend an unlimited amount of money electing politicians who will protect their interests. So who's protecting our interests? Being born and raised in North Miami Beach, I have seen firsthand the effects of corporate greed and climate change on our environment. Sea level rise is choking our Everglades and eroding our beautiful beaches. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Industrial agriculture is continuing to pollute our water, fueling the blue-green algae and red tide, which destroys our wildlife, hurts our tourism industry, and threatens our way of life. Enough is enough. It's time for one of us to go to Washington and stand up to the corporate greed and special interests that have been controlling our democracy for far too long. That's why I'm running for Congress. We need Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and criminal justice reform. Our grassroots campaign does not take money from any corporate interest. Together, we have the strength to make a change, but it requires political courage. Join us in our fight by going to gen2020.com and making a contribution today.
You seem very exciting, very fresh, progressive, and I saw you on Twitter, and you were organizing, you were volunteering for Meals on Wheels. You also have this thing called Gen Core. So I'm really excited about is hearing who you are, what you're about, and what you're running for.
Okay. Well, my name is Jen Perelman, and I am a congressional candidate for Florida's 23rd district. So I am challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the primary. And we are running a service-based campaign. I mean, we view congressional representation as a term of service and not a career. So when I started doing this, it's been a year now. And I want to say in August, maybe, we started Gen Core. And basically it's our volunteers, or we're always doing community service. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there is some amount of canvassing. I mean, we do phone banking and, especially now that we're shut down from canvassing, but we do service. So everything from mobile school pantry, veterans nursing home, park cleanup. We built a community garden at our campaign headquarters. Mm-hmm. Today I did Meals on Wheels because right now so many other things are shut down. Our typical stuff is not happening right now. Cool. So that's what I'm doing. And I mean, if you want to know about me, I'm a second generation native Floridian, born and raised in North Miami Beach. Mm-hmm. I left for 15 years, went to school, husband, 2 children, law degree later, moved back here in 2003, and I was practicing, and then I took 10 years off to be with my kids.
Awesome.
Cool. And can you speak to some of your other experiences that got you into running for this position?
Yeah, sure. My original background is actually journalism and marketing and advertising. And I went to school originally to be a journalist. I thought I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein. And I ended up getting into advertising, which then led me to get a master's in marketing communications. And that led me to doing media relations for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. And when I was doing that, I was basically setting up everything from press conferences at the governor's office at the state house. I was going into legislative session. I was taking, following different bills throughout the session and just reporting to our members and just all different things that were very policy oriented. And that was when I decided that I wanted to go to law school. I decided I wanted to lobby for nonprofit. I envisioned myself working for like the Innocence Project or something like that. I went to law school, and then I ended up doing criminal defense for a while. And I really, really love that. I love criminal defense. And the only reason I stopped doing that was when we relocated to South Florida and I had one child. We moved from an environment in Texas, there's no public defender's office. So in order to do indigent defense, basically what it is you go into the court and the judge will appoint different attorneys from the bench. So it's very political. You go in, you schmooze the judge, and you hope to get good appointments. But it's very flexible because if you don't want to take a case, you don't need to go. So when I moved here to South Florida, the only option was really going to the public defender's office, and I just did not have the time to put into doing a full-time gig like that. So I ended up getting involved in other areas of law and different things, but I've always been politically active. I've always been involved. I volunteered on every presidential campaign since before I was 18. And so I've always been very involved. And I just think that the timing of this is such that I saw an opening between even 16 and 18 with the amount of non-corporatists that were able to get through. And so it just seemed like the balance is shifting just enough, because that's what this is. That's what the game we're playing is the left, is we're balancing and we're waiting for this sort of equilibrium, right? So like on one hand, you've got like the dying baby boomer neoliberals. And on this side, you've got like this more progressive movement. And it will really only be when we outnumber them, right? So as more people are, I hate to say dying off, but dying off, and more of us. So I really felt like this election, this 2020, could be that breaking point. And maybe it isn't. I mean, that we are still the underdog here. So, I'm not delusional. But if we don't keep challenging, then it's like giving these people permission to just run amok forever.
And this is sort of just a technical question, but how do you run for Congress? How do you start, if that makes sense?
How do I start?
Yeah.
It's been crazy. We really, it was about a year and a few months ago, my campaign manager and we were only just sort of becoming friendly. I had met him a couple years earlier. We stayed in touch online, just look at this political story, look at that, nothing. And then as he got to know me, he started realizing that I really might fit the demographic in this district that would be capable of beating her in this district, because I'm a middle-aged Jewish woman that was born here. And it's an unfortunate reality that identity matters. And especially amongst these look, we've got a large elderly Jewish population. And there is a certain comfort level for them with, a nice Jewish girl. And so that is something that we noticed in 16 and in 18 with Tim running. In 16, I volunteered on Tim Canova's campaign. And he had a lot of money that year because that was the whole 2016 with the DNC fiasco and everybody hating on Debbie. And he raised about $4 million, which is for a congressional primary, it's insane. And so we learned a lot from that. And he had only lived here for 5 years before running for Congress, right? So he was an outsider. He didn't really have any roots here. He didn't really have any name recognition. Not that I have name recognition, but amongst the tribe, as we call it. Yeah, I mean, I've been a fixture here most of my life. So I have a lot of the same connections that Debbie naturally has. Like she and I are only 1 degree removed. So there is a certain infiltration into that demographic. Yeah. That my campaign manager sort of had this like epiphany, like, hey, you should run against Debbie. And at first I told him, you're delusional. Like, that's crazy. We don't think this can be done. And then slowly but surely, we just started chipping away at it. I started going to Dem clubs and civic organizations. And, in the beginning of it, I realized that I need to just make this a service campaign, because if I spend this whole year talking about myself and then I lose, then I've wasted this whole year of my life. So if I spend this whole year doing service and I lose, then I've spent this whole year doing service.
Yeah.
So that's really more of, I mean, my approach to this. And we're showing this district what it would look like if you had a representative that was actually a public servant.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's our strategy.
So she's actually popular in that district.
I wouldn't say she's popular. She has a niche, like this niche following, right, of people that are her core people. And when you have closed primaries in August in Florida, you have very low voter turnout, meaning that it doesn't take a lot of voters for her to stay where she is.
Mm-hmm.
We're very gerrymandered so that it is always the Democrat that is going to win this seat. They are not having a Republican in this district. Mm-hmm. So people that don't like her, for example, no party affiliations or Republicans, they often say to me, why does she keep sitting there? Why doesn't, and I'm like, because we're so gerrymandered and you can't vote in our primary. So we've had some, progress in getting people to switch their voter registration and Democrat to vote for me. Hmm. And it's another hurdle. And she has it set up. This is by design. This is how all of the Florida incumbents sit there with extremely low popularity. It doesn't take a lot to keep them there. Mm-hmm. So we're primarily focusing on people that are not her people. Mm-hmm. Even though I do think that I'll be able to pull some of her people.
And what are some of the policy differences between you two? What makes you a better candidate for your constituents?
Well, most people down here, and if you look at the recent polling from our primaries, support Medicare for all. So I could start with just that because that's really my first and foremost priority is Medicare for all. So 52% of people in Broward, which is a lot considering Broward is, it's blue, but like I said, it's a Biden blue, but these people want Medicare for all. So there's no way Debbie's supporting Medicare for all. She has flat out said she does not support Medicare for all. Members of our progressive caucus have gone in to meet with her to try to get her to support Medicare for all. She does not support Medicare for all. So I support single payer from day one. To me, it's a non-negotiable deal breaker.
Especially,
I also support the Green New Deal. And Debbie won't sign on to that either. So, our top three issues are Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and criminal justice reform. Yeah. And criminal justice reform, it's very broad. And if you look on my policies, I even go down to different things like demilitarization of police departments and violation of civil rights, how they need to be handled at a police level and the government oversight. But the two big key things are abolishing for-profit prisons and legalizing marijuana, or at least decriminalizing marijuana. So Debbie is not for any of those things. Debbie takes money from private prison industry. Debbie thinks marijuana is a gateway drug. So, I would say on every single issue, I don't think the only issue where she and I agree is we're both pro-choice, and she is for, obviously gun control is a huge, big issue for her. It's an easy one for her to pick up that flag and run with and come off looking like she's some sort of hero. It's a safe issue. And the NRA is the only group she doesn't take money from. So that's her roadway. So yeah, I'm in favor of regulations on handguns and firearms in general, and I'm pro-choice. But other than that, I believe in $15 minimum wage. I believe in guaranteed jobs. I believe that we should be guaranteeing housing. I actually like the idea of a UBI. And, so I'm pretty left for this country. Yeah. You guys say you're the far left, but the truth is,
yeah,
we're really, if you're like me, we're really not that left. And it's just crazy that we're thought of as left.
Yeah.
So, and Debbie would really be a Republican.
Yeah.
Really. If you looked at all her policies, she takes money from payday lenders, which are some of the most predatory lenders in terms of our Black and brown communities. And, it's shameful. First of all, I don't think there should be any private money in this. It should all be publicly financed anyway. I also support term limits, and Debbie obviously does not.
Okay. How did you end up getting the endorsement of Our Revolution and Brand New Congress?
Brand new Congress, I wish I could say that was a really hard thing to do, but it's a pretty easy sell. They are looking for progressives to take out these stagnant corporatist incumbents, and there is nobody more stagnant and corporatist than Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So we knew that when we approached Brand New Congress that they would be pretty happy to have me on their slate. And our revolution, that was also kind of an easy one just because we're friends. Our progressive caucus and our local Our Revolution hub is the same people. So the same people that run my progressive caucus are also in charge of Our Revolution, Progressive Democrats of America. Like they're all the same group. And so that was pretty, that one landed in my lap. But, again, these are no brainers. If you support a progressive policy, then why would you not endorse me over Debbie Wasserman Schultz? I mean, it's pretty basic.
I was also I was on Twitter and I saw Kyle Kalinske was talking about like, why would people vote for Joe Biden in this moment? And actually Tim Canova responded and he mentioned that we have unobservable ballot counting. And so I was curious because he thinks that the UN or somebody should step in to observe our elections. And that's how I feel too. I feel like, to be honest, I don't know if our democracy is legitimate. Like, I don't know.
Oh, no, I would tell you it's not. I don't think we even have to question that anymore. No.
Yeah.
We are the only way that people like me can even really get through, right, is by overwhelming with such a win that it can't be hacked, because it's going to be hacked, but they're limited in terms of the degree at which they can really fudge it, right? So it has to be, you can't let it be close. So you don't have to win, you have to overwin. And we have a problem. We have a problem in this country, and we specifically have a problem in Florida and in Broward County.
Yeah.
Now, when Tim ran in 16 and 18, our supervisor of elections down here was a woman named Brenda Snipes. And Brenda Snipes was found to be in violation of federal law. And not only wasn't she removed from office, but she ended up getting her pension. Like there was no repercussions, no prosecution, no nothing.
Yeah.
She was found because she destroyed his ballots before the time allotment. You're supposed to keep them for, I think, 22 months post the election. And she knew there was a lawsuit filed by him, and it was within that time period, and she destroyed the ballots. And she was found on summary judgment to have been in violation of federal law, and yet she didn't even lose her job with that. Like it's nothing happened. So I understand where he's coming from, and I do not trust our system, and I do not trust our elections, and I guarantee you there will be nonsense involved.
Yes.
However, I do feel slightly better that our supervisor of elections is no longer someone who's like besties with Debbie.
Okay.
So at least from my perspective, there is no longer an intentional, nefarious working against the challenger to her, because the person who is sitting there now was appointed by a Republican governor and doesn't really have a horse in our race. Like there's no personal connection. And so it's ridiculous that we even have to think about these things, but yet she was friends with Brenda Snipes. There was no doubt about it. So, at least I have that much that's changed. But we also are working something called a citizens election audit down here, and you should check that out. It's called Citizens Election Audit.
Yeah. And
they did a few test markets in the 16 election with Bernie and Hillary. And basically it involves everybody and an app on their phone. And similar to what Bernie was doing, or what he's doing in his primaries, where they're keeping track of their own numbers. They have their own people on the ground, and they're keeping track of their own numbers. Now, what ultimately recourse you have from doing that, I have no idea. But we do have something like that in place that's been sponsored by the Republican organization and the Progressive Caucus. I actually joined them together.
Okay.
I've made a lot of friends at the Republican organizations down here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I go to those clubs because on one hand, in some ways I prefer them.
Yeah.
And because, I'll take a Republican over a neo-lib any day. It's so much easier. It's one thing when to have to explain to a Democrat that healthcare is a human right is infinitely more infuriating than talking with Republicans. So,
yes.
Right. So I go and so I join them and they're part of our audit. So we have this election audit. I have a new supervisor of elections, but really it's a crapshoot. I don't feel very confident about it. And, I don't know what it would take for me to feel that way, but hand counted paper ballots would be a step in the right direction. Or I don't even necessarily care if they're hand counted, as long as you're keeping all the paper ballots, and then you can verify if there's a certain level percentage of discrepancy. Like there are systems that work better than others.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's not all one thing that all electronic is bad and all paper is good. There are systems that are better. But
And
then we have to do this based on publicly financed elections and not people, you know, lining their wallets with money from whatever, you know, private contractors are creating these voting machines and these ballots, because that's what this is they're giving these contracts to whoever these companies are because they're getting money. So it's all private. And then you've got things like private proprietary software that we're not even allowed to verify.
yes.
That is completely unacceptable. Every single thing that we're using for elections needs to be publicly verifiable.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing, is getting rid of the private contractors involved in this.
Mhm.
And there's more stuff about this also on my policy page, but yeah, we have a huge election integrity problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was amazing to hear, honestly. I've never heard somebody running for Congress who spoke so candidly about this, because this is how we
Well, this is the thing. I'm not a politician, and you know, for years people would say, oh, you should run for office. You should run for office. And I always said the same three things, which it's funny because now when I say it, you'll hear it. It should be almost like my slogan. And it's, I don't lie, I can't be bought, and I smoke weed. And so when you know, even as much as 5 years ago, that would have been a deal breaker for a candidate. You know, that would have been, so we have come a long way. But here's the thing, right? So I'm 48. I don't need this job. I don't need this money.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a career. And it's like we're on a bigger mission. So it really isn't about me. In fact, I actually have more concerns about what's going to happen if we win. You know, someone said that to me, what happens if you win? I'm like, oh my God, like we'd actually have to go to DC and you know, do this. But it's really a term of service. It's meant to be a term of service. And, you know, the fact that these people are sitting there as long as they have created this, not just appearance of impropriety, but this level of complacency that we are all just living with. And it's why. These are our employees. These people, we pay them to work for us. And yet that's not what they're doing.
Right.
So, you know, I hate to say that it would be nice if there were more people in my privileged position where you don't need this job and you don't need the money. And it isn't something you want to do for a lifetime. Yeah. Because unfortunately, just getting rid of the corporate money isn't enough. That's the first step. But you have to get someone who isn't in it for them, who doesn't see it as like a career. And those two things together are not an easy combination to come by. And, you know, whenever I see a candidate like that, I support them. Like I'm monthly to Shahid. Whoever it is, my DNC slate mates. And it's so important. And people just are so ignorant about, most people that I meet don't even know who their congressional representative is.
We didn't even know for a while, honestly, who ours was. But I wanted to ask about, because there seems to be an exit poll discrepancy in the primary election between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders.
Like 11% in some cases.
Yes, and there's people talking about March on DNC. There's usually almost always something going on, a protest at DNC, but it seems like it might be a pretty big thing now. And it seems like the dissatisfaction with just the establishment and what's going on in general. We have Britney Spears calling for everybody to stay home and have an overall wealth distribution, have an overall strike. It seems like if things keep moving in this direction, we could see a huge backlash. We'll basically a movement against the establishment even more than what we're doing right now. And my question is, what would you do if you were, I guess, in government now to sort of ameliorate this or make this a little bit better? Because I know there's the stimulus package that was just passed. How do you feel about the way the Trump administration is going about this?
It's like a tale of Tweedledee and Tweedledum between him and the establishment Democrats. I don't know. What they're trying to do is really not any better than what he's trying to do, because the reality is, and this is what really we need people to wake up and see, right? They're all on the same team.
Yes.
And it's not our team. And I keep trying to, and this is the hardest part about being in a Biden blue district and amongst very establishment type people, is that they still see this as a color war, blue versus red. The Democrats are the Democrats. We're the left party and they're the right party. And I'm like, no, they're far right, you're center right, and there is no Labor Party anymore. Okay, so that does not exist. We do not have a left and a right in this country anymore. Those of us that are left, that are still basically like surviving, if you will, in the Democratic Party, it's not good. And I would say that this election is going to be the last election where that's going to even be a situation, because they're going to implode. All right. See, there are more, I have found, and I'm a Bernie supporter, and I will not support Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I just won't.
Yes.
I just won't.
Mm-hmm.
And you will not find a lot of Democratic candidates that would openly admit that. They're going to have to say, well, I'm going to see who the nominee is, and we got to let this play out. And, well, it's anybody's better than Trump. And no. So there is no way I'm going to unsee what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And they are all the same. Now, I agree with Kyle. Now, if Biden chose Bernie or Nina Turner as a running mate, I still don't know, because I could see the powers that be killing them. Like I still don't know. Like, I actually thought even if he chose Mary Poppins as his running mate, I don't think I would vote for Joe Biden.
Right.
So, but the reality is, there is not a single thing, not one, that Joe Biden and I would agree on. Not one. It's not like, oh, I'm foregoing this, and this, but he's good on that and that and that. No, nothing. There is not a single thing that he would do that I would want done. Nothing. So,
to be honest, it's also not entirely clear. He, like when he goes on the news, when we try to watch him, it hurts. It's so painful. Like just the last time, it didn't seem like he knew what he was even talking about.
I don't think he does anymore, and it's sad. And honestly, I think that his wife and his inner circle should really be ashamed of themselves, and for them to put this off like, oh, he's had a stutter his whole life. Yeah, no, I've been watching Joe Biden for about 30 years, and actually he was quite a good debater, and he was quite sharp. And, he was always a bullshitter, but he was extremely, coherent and lucid. And now he is just not. And I do think a certain amount of Dems are having buyer's remorse. In some ways, I think that this crisis is going to benefit the left, whether it's people recognizing the need for these policies, whether it's people realizing that Joe Biden is not capable of being a leader, whatever it is, this is really going to expose a lot of things that people were otherwise not noticing. Yeah. So I feel more optimistic. Now, granted, I don't know what they're going to do as far as canceling primaries. And apparently now they're trying to shove Cuomo down people's throats in New York. Somehow he's the hero that's come in to save the day. And he's getting more mainstream media than Bernie. And we know this is what's going on. But I will tell you, like we were saying before, about how we're not really that far left. But since I've been doing this, I've met the left. And I tell my mainstream friends, like, I have one foot in both worlds. I see both. Mm-hmm. And I have met the left, and they are not having this anymore. Mm-hmm. So if for the people in the establishment, if they think that this is going to be like 16 at the convention where the Bernie people just walk out with tape over their mouths and silently stand outside, I foresee violence. I foresee chaos. Yeah. I foresee about 1 million people in Milwaukee. Yeah. And just as a frame of reference, I've never been to a convention in my life, and I have a place booked for that week in Milwaukee.
We do too.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people that are angry, descending in yellow vests, and they are the left. And I keep telling the Biden people, I'm like, you just do not know what's coming. Mm-hmm. But there is no way this is going to end with. And I think that the other factor will be whether or not Bernie actually does endorse Joe, right? Like, it's one thing if they screw Bernie and Joe gets the nomination, right? Yeah. And I think that's infuriating enough. And then we're going to implode the DNC. But then when Bernie turns around and endorses and then goes out and campaigns for him, that could potentially destroy our movement. That's what my concern is. And when he did it in 2016, it really bothered me. I Dem exited. I was very upset about Bernie. And it took me a couple of years even to kind of get back into, okay, I this is the only option. We got to do this. But I think this is the last shot on that.
Yeah. Well,
not to sound fatalistic or anything, but
that's how we feel too. I mean, we have a limited amount of time to reverse climate change before it's just irreversible. But I wanted to say, like, you really are one of us. Like, you really are a progressive. And I think,
totally.
I think a lot of us are nervous, and we're not sure who to trust, especially after Tulsi Gabbard, who.
Yeah. Well, see, Tulsi was never really a progressive, okay? Tulsi was never really a progressive except for, you know, her anti-war policies. And so progressives really sort of, you know, got attached to her, I think, because foreign policy, she was so awesome. And she still is. And I think she'd still be great in an administration. But, you know, her connections with Modi, like there have always been certain things about her that were just not all progressive, that just weren't.
You're on board for Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I respect her. I respected her a lot in 2016 for stepping down, for standing up for Bernie, for, you know, sticking it to the machine essentially. And I will always respect her for that. And she speaks truth to power, which I really do like about her. But policy wise, Tulsi's not a progressive, not by most standards. So I think we're just so used to people being corporate tools that anytime somebody who isn't a corporate tool, we just, progressive. No, not necessarily. But no, I'm very progressive. It's fun for us. If I were to be in like another country, I'd probably be just left of center.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I also wanted to kind of shift in talking about what's going on lately with coronavirus. So I wanted to understand your perspective of how you feel Florida's handling the coronavirus. I've been seeing a lot of videos of people like crowded at the beach in Florida. So I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah. Well, look, you know, it is spring break and teenagers and college people are kind of stupid. So there was a lot of nonsense. No offense, you guys are really young, but like there's a lot of nonsense. And, you know, there's this feeling of you're just immortal, you know? And so, but they did close down. The governor shut down the beaches. So Broward and Palm Beach beaches are completely closed. Nobody can go to the beach unless you show ID. You can't even cross over to get to the beach unless you live there. So they've done that. All of our public things are closed. But I think it hasn't been handled enough. And I think that given the amount of cases that we're having, we're not handling it in proportion to that. I know that we don't have a complete a stay-at-home order. We're just now, it's essential businesses only. But people are out and doing stuff. I mean, look, I went out and did my Meals on Wheels this morning. I was extremely careful. I wear gloves. We're not even going in. We're just knocking the door. And every time I sanitize, I mean, you know, I'm not worried about me. I'm not. And I'm being very selective as to like, I'm not seeing my parents. I'm not, you know, so I'm not worried about me getting this. In fact, nobody wants to hear this, but I'm pretty sure this is what I had at the end of February. And my campaign manager thinks I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, I thought that this is what I had. But regardless, I'm not worried about this for personally, but I wouldn't want to expose anyone else to this. So that's my concern. And Florida is always, you know, late to the party. We have closed primaries. We still have capital punishment. Florida has more for-profit prisons than anyone in the country. Florida charges more juveniles as adults than any state in the country. We have 14-year-olds in solitary confinement here. So Florida we call it Florida. And so, no, why would we be handling the coronavirus any better than that? What?
Yeah.
Unless there's a profit motive. Like if there was some way for this to be profitable, if it were profitable to shut everything down, that would have happened yesterday. You know? I mean, the only person it's really profitable for really is Jeff Bezos.
It's true.
That's food for thought. Who stands to profit the most from this?
Yeah. Do you have any more questions
No.
you want to ask? Okay. Well, we hope you join the squad once you're elected.
You know what? I like AOC is a BNC candidate. So we're connected through our headquarters.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet her when we had our summit. But, you know, it's hard for us. There's of our whole slate, really, they don't have high expectations percentage-wise of how many people can actually break through. Because it's still, you know, it's still an uphill battle. We're fighting corporate monoliths. That's really massive.
Well,
but
yeah, if you win, we're going to put a poster of you in back there to them. So you know, people like you are heroes to us. So thank you so much for trying
That's so funny to me. I'm just like this regular person, just, you know, like if you saw the setup of this office, it's ridiculous. Like I have this sitting on a chair and I like, it's crazy. I'm all but like holding things with my feet. There's nothing remotely. I mean, our campaign headquarters is a house that my campaign manager lives in. He gets room and board, but he doesn't take salary. Like we're scraping, you know, and I'm just trying to not, you know, bankrupt my husband while we're doing this. That's sort of my plan.
That's real though. That's very real.
Yeah.
It is. And like I said, I'm in a privileged position where I can afford to do this, but you know, that was also before coronavirus. And my husband just said, oh, we've just cut our salaries down 20%. And, you know, now he's got his employees can't come to work. And I mean, so it's definitely going to be hard.
Oh,
Yeah. So if people want to donate to you or read up more about your policies and your positions, where should they go?
Jen2020.com. And, you know, our best bet, I mean, we love monthly donors. We always say $23 for District 23. But, you know, if there's anyone out there that wants to, you know, max out and write me a check for $2,800, we take the big checks. We've gotten a couple. You know who David Cross is, the comedian?
I've heard.
Do you ever watch? Okay, people know him. My kids know him from Alvin and the Chipmunks, but he was in Arrested Development.
Oh, yes.
The bald guy with glasses?
Yeah.
Okay. So a few years ago, I saw him do this rant on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Like he hates her. And so when we started doing this a while ago, I thought we should really reach out to David Cross because I know he hates her. Well, apparently he found me on Twitter and he sent me $1,000, which I thought that was really cool. And John Cusack keeps retweeting me, which is nice.
Yeah. They're cool people.
Yeah. So that's how you learn who the progressives are.
Yeah.
When is your primary?
August 18th.
August 18th.
And the other key date is everybody, in order to vote for me, needs to be registered as a Democrat July 18th. So it's like 30 days prior. And it takes 3 minutes. You do it online. It's no big deal. I tell people you do it, you vote for me, and you could switch back. But, you know, it's another hurdle for people to jump through. So we just got to keep pushing that. July 18th date is critical.
Okay, well, we'll spread the word. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was really nice to.
Where are you guys in California?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. My husband's from Calabasas.
Oh,
okay.
nice. Yes, he's close. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you take care.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. We really
Absolutely. All right. Have a good day.
You take
Bye,
care.
guys.